So Kip Boyle here. He is the fractional chief information security officer for several companies. Before that, he was a captain with an F-22 program in the U.S. Air Force and then worked in private sector CISO. Kip, take it away.
I'll just simply add something, which is for the last 20 years, I've been doing my very best to find and develop and retain the most talented people that I can. As a result of that, I've interviewed hundreds and I've hired dozens of people into cybersecurity jobs, both blue team and red team. And so that's one of the major perspectives I'm going to speak to you from today. The other major perspective is from this open source project called the Cybersecurity Hiring Managers Handbook, and you can see the URL down there. Now we publish it on GitHub. That's where the markdown files are, but we also give you a nice readable version over on Netlify, and that's where this link will take you to. Now the Cybersecurity Hiring Managers Handbook. It was written by over 50 experienced hiring managers. So when you are wondering, what are hiring managers looking for, you can refer to this, because the best hiring managers are doing the things that are in this handbook, and it's online and available to you right now. Okay, so let's get right into it. What is it that they want? Well, I'm going to give you the bottom line up front. They need you to help them solve their problems. All right. So this is going to take some empathy from you. You've got to ask yourself, what are their problems and how can I help them solve those problems? What skills do I have? What expertise do I possess that I can bring to the work environment? And how can I help them solve their problems? Well, that's one thing I want to talk about today is what are their problems? So guess what? I've got a cybersecurity hiring manager avatar. Now, not avatar as in blue people in the movie, but avatar as in something that marketers do. When somebody is in marketing and they're trying to decide, how are we going to sell this good or service to people who would like to buy it, they make an avatar. They make a composite of a typical but ideal customer. Now, when you're trying to get onto somebody's red team, believe it or not, and I know most people don't like to hear this, but you're selling yourself. You're trying to convince the hiring manager that you can help them solve their problems. And so I want to help you do that. Now, I don't want you to do it in a sleazy way, as in, used car salesperson, right? That's not what I want. I want you to do it in a professional way. I want you to be somebody who shows up and is completely professional. Now, the high bar for sales, I talked about marketing, let's talk about sales. The high bar for sales is that you're serving people. You're actually giving them something that's going to make their lives better. That's the best part of sales. It's not this sleaziness where somebody's trying to hit their numbers and they're saying and doing anything they can to get you to buy from them. Nope. This is, you're trying to serve somebody. And so I've got a hiring manager avatar here. Look in the upper left-hand corner. You can see that a typical hiring manager has goals. They have values. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, they have challenges and pain points. As a red teamer, you probably don't resonate with much of this. And that's because hiring managers are typically in a completely different headspace than you are. And that's something I want you to recognize. I want you to develop your empathy for hiring managers. And I'm going to continue to share more insights today as far as how you can do that. All right. Now, there are some patterns in every organization that will greatly affect your employment experience. And I want to clue you into some of these patterns. And these are patterns between the HR department and a hiring manager. There are, generally speaking, two types of human resources departments in any organization. There are departments that think strategically about people. They genuinely behave in a way that is believable when they say that people are their company's greatest assets. And they are very smart about how they search for people and the kind of people that they want to bring onto their teams. They're looking for unteachable skills like curiosity, humility, resilience. Nobody can teach you this on the job. This is something you have to show up with. But these things are incredibly valuable on any team. All right. Now, in my experience in the world, less than half of HR departments are strategic in their behavior. They say the right things almost always, but their behavior doesn't always line up to that. Now, the other type of HR department is a transactional HR department, is the way I think of it. And I would say, in my experience, most HR departments are like this. And their behavior tells you they just want to get butts in seats. That's pretty much it. They really don't see you as a whole person, and they're just looking to to fill their quotas as quickly and cheaply as possible. And so they use a lot of shortcuts. They use a lot of easy buttons. So focusing on hard skills, focusing on pedigree, those are easy ways, they think, to identify top people. All right. So just now let's hold on to the fact that there's two types of HR departments. Now, there's at least two types of hiring managers in my experience. And guess what? They kind of fall into the same two buckets. So you've got strategic, relationship-oriented hiring managers, which I would say are less than half of all the cybersecurity hiring managers out there, including red team hiring managers. They're relationship-oriented, and they're very much like the strategic HR department. They're prioritizing people who have valuable, unteachable skills. They're looking for somebody who fits. In contrast, there's the transactional hiring manager, and they're very much get butts in seats, churn and burn, and they prioritize hard skills, and they're extremely task oriented, and they expect you to leave your personal life at the door when you show up for work every day. All right. And when things go bad, they will throw you out without any mercy. So if we think about the fact that there's these two major types of HR departments and hiring managers, well, now let's take a look at the patterns. It's a very common pattern to encounter an employer that has a very task-oriented HR department filled with task-oriented hiring managers in the rest of the organization. Now, some people like this. And if you're a red teamer and you're like, man, just give me the tasks, I don't want any of this relationship stuff. Put your woo-woo stick away. Get out of here. I don't want any of that stuff, right? Just let me come in and do my job. This is what you need to look for. You need to look for these very task-oriented HR departments coupled with a task-oriented hiring manager. And if you can get, this alignment where they're both on the same page, you're going to get consistent behavior. You may not like the behavior you get, but it will be consistent. All right. So this is a very common pattern. This is a very uncommon pattern where you've got a task-oriented human resources department and a relationship-oriented hiring manager. These two are not on the same page. You're going to get very inconsistent behavior. And I would say that a lot of the trouble that we run into today as job seekers, as job hunters, comes from the fact that this pattern exists, because your first encounter with the HR department is going to be very different than your first encounter with the hiring manager, because they are philosophically going about their jobs in very, very different ways. So you get very inconsistent behavior. You talk to an HR person, and all they care about is what school did you go to. You talk to the hiring manager, and they want to know, how's your day? And they want to know, they want to understand your behavior. They want to understand, what's valuable to you, because they're trying to build a team environment where you're going to want to stay a long time. So these things don't go together very well. You can make it work, but you'll see a lot of inconsistency. You'll see a relationship-oriented hiring manager who has to do layoffs, which is complete awfulness for them. So now there's a rare combination, a rare pattern, and that's where you've got a relationship-oriented HR department and a task-oriented hiring manager. This is rare because when it happens, it doesn't last long. The HR department will see that the task-oriented cybersecurity hiring manager is awful and is churning and burning, and that is absolutely wrong for the philosophy of the HR department. So when you get this combination, the HR departments will either retrain these hiring managers or remove them and replace them with a relationship-oriented or a strategic hiring manager, team manager. Now, the mythical pattern, this is the last one I'm going to talk about, is this relationship-oriented HR department coupled with a relationship-oriented hiring manager. This doesn't happen very often. This is extremely rare. And if you're a task-oriented person, you will hate this. So be on the lookout for stuff like this and avoid it, because you're just going to make yourself miserable. If you go to work in a place that is really interested in how you feel, and you don't like talking about your feelings, so avoid this. Now, there's as good as this can be for somebody who is more relationship oriented on the job, there's opportunity for abuse here, and I've seen it before. This is a perfect environment where people will say dumb things like, "Oh, we're a family here at ABC Corporation." No, you're not. If you ever hear anybody say you're a family, that's straight up manipulation, all right? Because families don't do layoffs and families don't fire people, okay? So, and inevitably this happens. And no matter how good the organization is, sooner or later, something awful has to be done, and that is not a family. Okay, that's like more like a professional sports team where we all work together and we do our best, but sometimes people have to go, and it's awful. But that's not what a family is. Okay, so those are the four common patterns. Now, what I want you to know is, what should you be? You need to think about this. All right, how are you going to present yourself to a hiring manager who's looking for red team members? And how are you going to know what you need to go for? So think about these four patterns and think about which ones you like, which ones you think you're going to enjoy the most, and then you need to go after them. And one of the ways you can tell a relationship oriented or a strategic oriented HR department and hiring manager is that they're going to screen for unteachable skills. They're going to try to figure out, how curious are you? They're going to try to figure out, how tenacious are you? And sometimes they do that deliberately, and sometimes honestly they do it without meaning to. But that's how you can tell. That's one very clear signal that you can tell that that you're dealing with either a relationship oriented HR department or a relationship oriented hiring manager, or possibly both. All right. Now, no matter what kind of HR department and no matter what kind of hiring manager, most employers are looking for rainbow unicorn red team members. All right. These are mythical employees who have every possible skill and lots of experience. All right. They're the perfect blend of character, aptitude, hard skills, soft skills, right? And these people don't exist, but this is what they're looking for. Now, you've got to be really careful about a task-oriented boss who milks your relationship-oriented behavior and way of showing up, because to them, you are going to look like a rainbow unicorn, and they would love to have you on their team, because you show up with things they don't even understand that are good, like that you're self-directed, that you're curious, that you have grit, all this stuff that can't be trained. They want it, but they don't really understand how to be relationship oriented. They just don't possess those muscles. But what happens is when you show up and they think you're a rainbow unicorn, they will call you a rock star to your face. They will tell everybody what a rock star you are. But really, you have to wonder, are you working inside of a task-oriented get butts in seats system, or are you really in a relationship-driven environment, which is what you may want? And what I find is that as long as you perform consistently at a high level, you'll be okay in a situation like this. But ultimately, if it suits their needs, they will throw you out in a very merciless way. So just be careful how you show up, and be careful about what pattern you fall into, because that'll determine how at risk you are of getting laid off or overworked or treated badly. So I don't recommend that you try to be the mythical rainbow unicorn, and I don't think you should even try to be the better version of that, I suppose, might be Leonardo da Vinci, right? So there's some sort of a person who can do everything. This is not a good thing either, because even though this looks prettier and it seems more upscale, the problem with this is that if you take a job where you are the incident responder and the compliance person in the same week, right? That's awful. That is inherently in conflict. Now, as a red teamer, here's what you need to watch out for, which is, are you a rule maker or a rule breaker? Because you can't be both. If somebody hires you and says, "Hey, you're a red teamer, but in your spare time, I want you to write policies and I want you to, do all this blue team stuff," that's a conflict of interest. So it may feel good for people to tell you you're a Leonardo da Vinci, you're a rock star, but you could be put into situations that are extremely uncomfortable from a corporate governance perspective. So when you're looking at these job descriptions, make sure that they're not causing clash for you by mixing these very different skills. You want neighboring skills to be in your job description. Okay, that's going to set you up for success. Now, my definition of a rock star isn't the unicorn. It's not Da Vinci. It's a T-shaped person. Now, in the case of a red teamer, you're going to have technical depth in a lot of things. And I'm going to show you in a moment what I think those are. But you're also going to have a certain amount of competence in the business that your employer is in and the broader technology stack that they are going to market with. Or if you're a pen tester for hire, you're going to be thinking about what is the business of my customer and what tech stack are they running. But ultimately, you want to be really deep in one technical area and you want to be conversant about business and technology, right? So be a T-shaped person. I think this is the best way to go. And I think you'll find that red team hiring managers will find this very attractive. Now, as I wrap up, I went out and I just asked 3 red team hiring managers that I know. I said, tell me 3 or 4 things that you prioritize when you're hiring red teamers, right? And I didn't prep them. I didn't tell them anything about soft skills or hard skills or whatever. I just said, what are the 3 or 4 things you're looking for? And here's what and so I've got 3 of them here I want to share with you. So the first person was very concise, right? And you can see what they said. This is almost word for word what I got. But if you look at this, there's not a lot of hard skills here, right? So I would say it's pretty clear that hiring manager number 1 is thinking about people in a more strategic way rather than I need to get some butts and seats here. All right. So while this is anecdotal and highly biased, right? Because I didn't ask everybody, I didn't do a statistically sound sample. I think this is revealing. Here's hiring manager number 2. And I encourage you to scan this. I'm not going to read it to you. But ask yourself, how many hard skills am I seeing in what hiring manager number 2 wants? And by the way, I would work for any of these hiring managers who I'm sharing with you here. I would work for them any day of the week because they are, they're just real people and they do good work. And I would love to learn from them. But how many like hard skills do you see in this list of 3 bullets? Well, there's some, but there's a lot of other things in here too that are valuable. So if you're thinking that red teaming is all about the hard skills and how well you can pull systems apart and capture the flag, yeah, that's important, but that's not the full picture. Okay. Here's the 3rd hiring manager, and this is a bit of an eye test, right? They went crazy, but I like this because they put the things they're looking for into 4 discrete buckets. They put labels on each bucket: technical skills, critical thinking, communication skills, ethics, and professionalism. Only 25% of what this red team hiring manager is looking for are what I would call hard skills. So I'm here to tell you that red team hiring managers are maybe not what you thought. I'm sure there are some red team hiring managers out there that are all about the hard skills, all about tasks, and that's fine. But they're not all like that. And that's something that I really want you to understand. Now, as I wrap up and transition into Q&A, I want you to know that I have a podcast. It's called Your Cyber Path. And the purpose of the podcast is to help you accelerate your career. And I do this with a co-host. His name is Jason Dion. And you may have taken one of Jason's certification prep courses off of Udemy or off of his website, Dion Training. And he's helped literally hundreds of thousands of students get certifications. And so he's my co-host. And we've been doing this together for a couple of years now. And I'd encourage you to check it out. We talk about all this stuff and more. I also teach an Antisyphon course. It's called How to Be Irresistible to Hiring Managers. It includes the kinds of things I've talked about today, but it goes way beyond that. I don't want to try to even unpack this right now, but if you go hit the The landing page on the Antisyphon website, it gives you a nice breakdown of what all I cover, and it's available live or on demand. So now I'm really interested to know what's on your mind. What questions do you have?
Well, thank you, Kip. That was amazing. So, how many interviews do you think is normal? How time consuming should interview projects be?
So, first of all, when I interview, there's generally 4 interviews. Each interview is about 30 to 45 minutes, and I like to do them over no more than 2 weeks because I'm trying to build relationships with people as I go through the hiring process. So I want you to feel respected. I don't want to exploit you, and I don't want to wear you out. Now, obviously, that's not what you experience everywhere else, but that's what I try to do. And then, as far as like a take home type of a problem, I don't do that, but if I did, I would probably limit that to between 1 and 2 hours of time outside of the direct interview experience. People who give these, day long, 2 day long outside of the interview cycle assignments, I'm suspicious of that, to be honest with you. Maybe it's a great place to work, but they just don't know how to interview efficiently.
What are the red flags of a potentially bad manager?
Okay, red flags are to me, right? Because remember, everybody's looking for something different. All right. So you have to ask yourself, what am I looking for? Do I want that relationship driven culture where I can come to work as a whole person, right? That's called psychological safety. And Google studied the need for supervisors. All right. Because when Google was first started, the whole idea of having a supervisor was awful and they didn't even have them. But over time, they realized that there was no way they could scale without supervisors of some kind. And so they did the very Google thing they used to do, which is they studied the hell out of it and they generated tons of data. And what they found was the number one success factor for a team supervisor was somebody who could create a psychologically safe environment where people felt free to say whatever was on their mind, that they didn't have to self-censor or self-filter whether they could share something without being judged. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of environment do I want? And then look for red flags that tell you whether you are or are not encountering that kind of environment. If you just want to be in a task-oriented place and people ask you how you're doing all the time, that's a pretty big red flag for you. If you want to work in a relationship organization and they can't stop talking about how you don't have the right experience with the right tool, that's probably a red flag for you.
Do you have any resources to help buff up your soft skills to be a better fit?
Absolutely. So, first of all, we have several episodes in the Your Cyber Path podcast that focus on soft skills. And so I would invite you to go to yourcyberpath.com. We have a whole archive of all of our podcast episodes. And I know some people don't like listening to podcasts. We've got a full transcript of every episode right there on the page. So if you just want to skim or you want to use some regex skills so that you can hone in on exactly what it is you want, go for it.
Thanks for watching. Achieve your next level of skills with training courses at antisyphontraining.com.